Christopher. Welcome back to another week in advance. How you doing?
Really fantastic. It looks like we're in alignment tonight, both wearing caps, which is kind of fun. So there is a prevailing harmony in the universe as far as I'm concerned. Are you feeling that too?
I'm feeling the alignment of something exciting on the horizon for all of us. And yes, we did just show up, both with caps. I love your caps because they've got your name on it. It makes me feel a little out of place here, but yours are awesome.
Yeah, this is not only my name, but the name of the website, Onefeather Journal. So, and I'm promoting the website. I finally got it looking like a professional website instead of just a hodgepodge that I'd slapped together. So I'm rather pleased with that. And then since we're mentioning websites and driving people to check us out, I'm at onefeatherjournal.com, all one word. And you've got some exciting news that you're getting ready to present to the world on your website.
Well, yeah, it hasn't come out yet, but it's going to be Leo King Events, my big retreat that I'm planning up here in the summer for Jupiter and Leo. And my hat isn't as exciting as yours, but I am honoring another Leo, Andy Irons, which was an awesome surfer for my favorite surf brand, Billabong. He has passed away, but I am repping another Leo. So, and we are talking as we have this full moon in Leo here for Valentine's Day, and then it shifts right into Virgo very quick. But what an exciting feeling, especially as this full moon is gonna be sextiling Mars, and it's coming off a Saturn square. I think that this is really exciting.
It is. It's a full moon that has a lot of emotional fulfillment. I think it's it's pulling from the depths of our soul. It's illuminating areas in our lives that perhaps we've felt an absence of communion with that part of who we are. Because Leo loves to operate on that fourth chakra level. It likes to get into the heart energy. So yeah, I think this full moon is, if you ever go to a Catholic church and you see the different paintings on the wall and different statues, you'll see Mary and Jesus holding the Sacred Heart. And it's interesting because it's all positioned right in that fourth chakra area. And to me, that's very Leonine. That's actually that Pisces-Leo interaction of fourth chakra energy coming into expansion, coming into fullness with the filling of the moon.
Yeah, and this one's going to be pretty much kind of close on the horizon, so I think we're going to see a real big full moon, because it's going to be happening right at pretty much, from what I'm showing here, it's going to happen around right as sunset is happening, especially here in California. So I would say over there where you're at, anybody on the East Coast, it's going to be happening pretty close, to the horizon. So I think it's pretty cool to have this thing happen, as we're really stepping into the weekend, that this is a fire igniting. This is also Mercury retrograde back into Aquarius, which Mercury coming out of Pisces in those deep waters, especially conjunct Neptune like it was over the last week and a half, really does bring this big awakening and this electricity now. It's like this air energy comes, and with the fire it just sparks everything up really intensely. And Mercury on the sun in a full moon alignment always does bring up a lot of trying to bring a lot of clarity to things, a lot of intellectual clarity, especially as it's in an air sign like Aquarius. Big epiphanies on this full moon. I think our heart is directing the epiphanies. It's saying, hey, this is what makes me happy. Let's go into this. Let's electrify in this. This is also a big square to Saturn. Even though it's not exact, there is that square element happening, and this is making sure that we're paying attention to some deep truths, some deep emotional truths that, I think we have to remember that Saturn in Scorpio is the anchor of living in real deep exposing of our emotional truths of what is real to us in very deep ways. And in order for us to spark up in the right directions, we must pay attention to this energy.
Oh, absolutely, because Saturn is always the teacher. So buried within the events of this weekend There are going to be things that are revealed to you that you're currently not quite sure about, that you haven't fully examined. You know, when Mercury actually conjuncts the sun, we all refer to that as a combust. When the sun is conjunct a planet, they call that a combust. And you have to look at that word combust. It is exactly as you had said. It's a very explosive kind of energy. It is when you have this pile of tinder ready to go, and you throw the match on the tinder, and it combusts. All of a sudden, let there be light. So I think that this Mercury-Sun conjunction, because Mercury is traveling backwards, it is retrograde, it is going to be a real eye-opener, and it'll probably come through communication. Somebody's going to say something to you, you're going to read something, you're going to be sitting there in your meditation, and this voice from the heavens is going to say, hey, you, I have a message for you. And then watching this as these two planets are coming together, and that nice exact sextile to Mars in Libra. What is Libra all about? Looking for balance, looking for harmony, getting the scales to come into that perfect balance. So this full moon has an immense amount of potential for enlightenment, for you to take your next step into the future with an awareness of, oh yes, this is my future, this is where I belong, I'm part of all this. This universal flow is flowing through me, and I am flowing with it.
Yeah, and that we need to make commitments to that road in whatever way that means. It can become difficult maybe deciding, because this is a weird Mercury retrograde dipping in Pisces into Aquarius. And you're right, I actually think you couldn't have described it any better. There are going to be people saying things, and our emotions oppose this, which might not want to hear those things. This moon in Leo can sometimes really bring out this one directional kind of, I need to feel this way to feel good. And Mercury and the sun opposing this in Aquarius can be a little cold and be like, well, this is what this is. And especially as it all squares Saturn, this is the truth. Sometimes it's difficult for Aquarius and Leo to really explode in their powerful energy when you have Saturn and Scorpio squaring it, because that's the truth bringer. You know, you can love somebody, but you know, if you're not very attracted to them, it can become difficult, right? Saturn and Scorpio. The other thing is Aquarius wants to rebel and be free, but sometimes if you don't have these certain things that Scorpios, the truth is, maybe it can restrict you from these things. And I think, yes, there's going to be this very high positive outlook of this full moon to bring us into the future, but I still think there behind the curtain is some difficult decisions to make deep down inside of our own emotions of making sure we're navigating the right place. If you're navigating in a place that is trying to be logically right, it could run into a roadblock as the emotional, deeper element inside is trying to direct you on the right road.
That's actually very accurate. The other thing about whenever you have this much activity going on in those final stages of Aquarius, as Aquarius is preparing, or as the sun is preparing to exit Aquarius in a few days after the full moon event, we have that vibe of the future that all this is interwoven into it. The two most futuristic signs in the zodiac are Aquarius. They're all thinking into the future for community. Let's build, you know, a home for the homeless. Let's build a railroad to connect people. Let's, you know, unite the world. That's very Aquarian. And then we have Sagittarius, which is the other futuristic sign. So that Aquarian vision of the future is really going to come up into the public's eye. A lot of people are going to stop and think about what's going to happen from the actions that I'm initiating today or tomorrow or next week. What is the outcome? What does the future hold for me and for the people that I'm connected to and for the activities that I'm in pursuit of? So, yeah, casting a vision out there and creating a sense of where you're going to step in this next part of the process of your journey. Creating a sense of future is going to be a very important part of this entire weekend.
Yeah, because we have that solid energy of the moon now will slip into Virgo, and it will have a lot of extra juice on it coming out of a big full moon in Leo with Mars and all this stuff. And here it is coming into Virgo, which it will trine Pluto and trine Venus, which has been going through an extended stay in Capricorn. There's a lot to build on. There's a lot for our emotions to get specific on, too, as we're looking in the future. One good thing about Aquarius and Virgo energy is with this great detachment, with these great epiphanies, when you try and ground your emotions, though, and it's almost like keeping a couple feet down on earth, but your head up in the clouds, kind of a Pisces kind of way of doing it. This is kind of a very intellectual way of keeping a sense of what to build, but keeping your electricity flowing in this great epiphany way. And how can you connect this together? And it is the future. It is hugely the future, especially is because the universe is trying to push this along very fast. It was very rare to have the sun square Saturn the week coming up to this full moon and then trine Mars. I mean, that's a very quick 3-day cycle of the most stop kind of energy and then the most go kind of energy you could have. That shows that we're kind of like, you know, jumping deep into one side of the pool and then jumping deep into another. It's like, okay, let's do this now. It's very intense. And it's very dramatic, kind of the presence that this weekend brings, because I think this week is so powerful about our future. The sun comes into Pisces this week, and on top of all that, we're going to have the node shift as well.
Exactly. So very much a karmic connection as the nodes start to integrate a whole different vibration, because coming out of that polarity of Taurus and Scorpio, which is very, very stubborn and willful and very intense and almost cathartic, and moving into Libra, Aries, much lighter kind of vibe going on. You'll be pulling in the positive and negative karmic aspects through fire and air now, which is, you know, getting things up to a higher vibration. You're no longer stuck in that water-earth polarity, and when you mix water and earth, you get mud. You know, and we've been slogging around in the mud with the nodal activity for a while now. So it's going to be a pleasant thing watching the nodes flip over into that lighter energy, and I think people will feel it almost immediately.
Yeah, when you mix the sun coming into to Pisces this week, what a big shift in energy. This is going to dig us deeper into this energy, especially that Mercury retrograde has been going over. I think that there's a lot here as the sun's getting closer to Neptune of really digging deep down and bringing up our conscious energy and kind of weeding through our unconscious selves and really starting to become clear on a more spiritual level as we're ready to bridge our future. But the sun moving into Pisces is all about, you know, it's about endings. It's about higher connection. And I think that our futures are starting to become more understanding and set. Now, whether or not we can let go of energies that could hold us from our future is what I think we're ready to step into, especially as we step into this weekend, the node shift to Libra Aries like you just described, which it definitely is a rebalancing act. And Mars getting ready to station, as Mars at 26 degrees this week comes to 27 and then it stops. And this is the stationary position of Mars. And this is kind of the story now. It is, can you take balance in your life? Can you have the right kind of relationships? And I think as interior-wise, we're trying to connect with a higher purpose now. Our futures are understood, but what is the higher purpose of this future? And maybe even, you know, Pisces is all about becoming clear and kind of clearing the energy that's not in high vibration. And I think that's what we began on this week is we're ready for future, but what could be holding us from that? Or more importantly, what can we connect to higher to make this future, I don't know, better? Because I think that a future is great in Aquarius, but unless you have a Pisces purpose behind it, I don't even think it's worth living in a future without it.
Oh, very true, because the Piscean energy is very much like the ocean. It is the energy that engulfs. Aquarius is the desire to create unification, but then with Pisces, we see everything engulfed in the ocean of divinity, the ocean of God consciousness. So if we are willing to allow those insights, those epiphanies, those understandings to come into our consciousness, then we will undoubtedly experience some level of illumination. And as you had said, by the end of the week, we're going to see the sun moving very, very close to Neptune. It'll be at 2 degrees next Friday, and Neptune will be at 4 degrees. And this is what I was just talking about, the energy of combustion. So think about the fire energy of the sun hitting that Neptunian depths of the ocean, and you've almost got like a hydrogen bomb going off. You've got an explosion of energy that could be very, very illuminating for people who are willing to approach it with that idea of God, reveal thyself to me. Because one of the things that we all probably should be more alert to is the fact that divinity will not reveal itself to you unless you are in a state of receptivity. God doesn't force you to do things. Your ego is what forces you to experience things, forces you to struggle, forces you to have, all of these difficult moments in life. And divinity is sitting up there saying, well, when you're ready for me, I've got something for you. And this is one of those weekend events, this coming weekend, where there could be that explosion of understanding and that penetration into the depths of divine love. So this weekend and the following weekend are both very, very intensely spiritual weekends if you are ready to accept.
Yeah, and that's what this is about, is are you willing to go with the flow too? Because I feel that there's this huge setup by the universe, because we kind of have to look into the future. That first week of March is one of the most wild weeks of all time, with all the planets about to shift gears very intensely. And I think it's interesting that it's going to be on that new moon in Pisces, which we're going to be starting our build-up over this week as the full moon exits, and this will be the waning down of the moon, getting ready for a new moon in Pisces in a couple weeks. And this new moon in Pisces is going to be a huge kickoff, as it will trine Jupiter. So if you look in the future, the Pisces energies is wanting to bring in something very powerful, but it could be a two-headed monster in a positive way or a negative way. I think Pisces brings the conscious realms and the unconscious realms, and I think we're going to start to see this come into our lives and the people that surround us, as these are going to be the weeks, and especially this week, to really get your awareness going, to really go with the flow, to really channel spirit, because when this hits at the beginning of March, you will see the unconscious and the conscious realms really split and be very clear. And this is important for, I think, all of us to embark this week on, are we willing to connect with our dreams? Are we ready to connect with the other side? Because we have these great futures, but without compassion, without dreams, without spiritual connection, or if you want to look at it in a very unique way, without God behind it, what's the whole purpose of the future? And that must be I don't even know how to describe it, but I guess that needs to be the glue into your future now. And this is the glue we must start to search for, because I think even though Mercury's still retrograding and it's in Aquarius, we're going to keep stumbling on quick ideas and all these great understandings of your future. But it is your core which needs to focus more on how to put this together spiritually, to find the deeper meaning behind it, to allow spirit to come into this future. Don't worry, your mind's going to be figuring things out. I don't think you need to invest every bit of your energy, though, into it, as I think it's more important to balance out your life. I think it's more important to pay attention to the spiritual aspect now.
Yeah, it's absolutely a necessity to be able to allow yourself to surrender. You know, it's like when you fall into a swimming pool, if you're thrashing and kicking, you're probably going to be going down as long as you're doing that kind of activity. But when you just surrender, you float to the surface, and the universe, the pool, the water, the Piscean, Cancerian, Scorpionic energies bring you up and support you. And really, we're seeing another example of how this watery trine that has been going on just by the planetary placements in the three signs, even though they're not an exact trine, you still have that beautiful alignment of Saturn in Scorpio, Jupiter in Cancer, Neptune in Chiron and Pisces. So we've got a triumvirate going on here. And the triumvirate, because it's like a pyramid, it is, you know, the three-sided image. That is a very solid structure. It's not as inclined to flip over on its side like a square, and it doesn't just roll around like a circle. We see a foundation and we see a pinnacle, and it's on the top of this pinnacle where the illumination comes. The other thing I'll mention here is that we do have this nice advance as Mercury is starting to escape from that pull that was going on as it had retrograded back to Pluto. So now we're beginning to see that separation from the Plutonian energy, and Mercury is, Venus is going to continue to clear itself from that energy, and we're going to see ourselves finally come out of this depths that a lot of us have been going through as far as the dark night of the soul, the questions about existence, should I live, should I die, all of those illusions that we have finally gone through. We have done some healing work around, and now we're going to watch the energy begin to lighten up for each individual in their personal journey as Venus moves forward in Capricorn.
Yeah, this Venus Capricorn story is getting ready for a close. It's trying to, at least. These are the last couple weeks of us really to look at the achievements we're willing to make in our life and what we can create with those achievements in our own value systems. And this week is going to be one of those weeks where, even though it is so transformational with the node switching and the sun coming into Pisces, it's interesting to watch the moon as it will come through Libra and Scorpio and end here in Sagittarius and in a waning aspect. And I think that there's a calming this week to look inside of yourself deeper and pay attention to, I'm just going to say it, out of this world energy. When you mix Aquarius and Pisces very intensely like this, and you're starting to see the planets slow down, like Jupiter, which has now reached 10 degrees this week, where it will sit for the next month and a half, and then you've got, Mars stopping, and Saturn's at 23, where it will stop. There's a lot to pay attention to here. The other big alignment, which we almost forgot to talk about, is Uranus and Jupiter making their square this week, exactly at 10 degrees. And I think a lot of us are needing to really reinvent our lives correctly in order to kind of go farther. Uranus and Aries wants us to reinvent our personas. It wants us to step into courage. And Jupiter in Cancer, is in a square of that. It's unsure. It wants to explore, but the emotions need to be right and the comfort levels need to be there. And this is where you'll see where if you're living in your correct identification of self, even though it's a square, it could be used to really launch and open some really big doors. But these doors do not open for anybody. You've got to show up with the proper identification of your truth, of your courage, of your strength, and you're willing to step into the future, And I think that's part of the lesson this week. Like, the universe ain't going to just open doors for anybody. You've got to really have proven that the identification, or even that your ego, is being used for good. That's the way I look at it.
Oh, absolutely. And looking at that Uranian activity, Uranus is going to be continuing to pick up speed. It is starting once again to interact with Pluto. It's gaining the attention of Pluto, and then it's going to leap over Pluto And I think that's going to be a release point a few weeks down the road. But right now, the Uranian challenge is definitely there from two different angles, from Jupiter, from Pluto, and we're going to watch that be influenced most directly as the moon passes through Libra and sets off that grand square one more time.
Yeah, this is going to be pretty epic. Uranus Jupiter square can be a lot of wild energy into people's lives and some really powerful doors opening, but they're not normal, and they you've got to have a certain kind of key to open this up. It doesn't open up for anybody. You really have to be doing your work. That's the way I look at it. You really have to be able to step forward in the future, and you really have to identify yourself correctly at these doors to open. It's a lot like in the Matrix when they have to get the key maker to open that door to get into the doorway, to get into the mainframe system. You know, it wasn't easy. They had to cut the power off. They had to do all these things to get in this door opening. And I think for us, there's some powerful doors here to open. But, I'm just going to say, you've got to be aware, and you've got to be on high vibration. The universe is not letting the unconscious kind of egoed doors to open. This could be where big doors are closing, but those doors closing are huge lessons for you to become more aware, to open up now into the right areas. And that's how I look at this.
Exactly. It's a time of profound healing, but just like I said before, the healing will only arrive in proportion to your giving allowance to it to occur. Again, the universe never forces us to accept the healing energy. That's up to us. But it generally has a formula, a plan, or a pattern. And if you look into your own personal chart, you can see where that healing energy is going to be coming from. And right now we've got Chiron setting up there at what? Chiron is at 12 degrees Pisces. So that is an exact trine to Pluto at 12 degrees Capricorn. So once again, the healing energy is there, and it has a potential to go to the depths of your soul, because Pluto is bringing things up from way beneath the surface, way beneath the crust of the planet. It's that vulcanization activity, and Chiron is the healer that wants to heal and wants everybody to arrive at a higher level, but it has to heal itself before it can facilitate the healing of others. So a lot of very deep transformational energy can be released as all of these other planets are in motion.
Yeah, let's see what the cards have to say.
Well, this is going to be an interesting draw. The first thing that comes up, now this is very much in alignment with Friday's energy, I think, because after we move through that full moon, what happens? Well, there's also a little bit of a melancholy moment. It's that everything came to fullness. The light was reflected off of the moon. We saw very clearly all the elements in our lives. And then we have 8 of Cups. We're leaving behind all of these emotional investments that didn't pay off, the emotional frustration and failure moments in our lives. So Friday may have a little bit of a melancholy about it, as well as this other very vibrant, exciting energy. Saturday, Sunday, and actually even into Monday, we've got that Mercury getting settled back into Aquarius. The Page of Swords, communication is going to be highlighted. A lot of activity around communication, and I would say to everybody, make sure that you're paying attention to messages left on your phone and to emails that show up. This is a time to be very timely with your communication, to respond to people, to get back in touch. Then as we move into the coming week, we have the King of Cups, and this is all again, that very leonine kind of energy, the opening of the heart. The fellow here, the king, is sitting here, and he's got what on his necklace there. He's got the fish. And he's holding up the cup of divine love. So as we start next week, we're going to have that kind of vibration that will surface within us. All of a sudden, we're going to discover within our the deeper levels of our mental activity, we're going to discover that compassion, that healing emotional range of energy, and you know, look for our own divinity to express that fourth chakra. As we move into next week, things are going to speed up, and we've got the Five of Rods. This is not so much combativeness, but it's just a lot of activity. You can see these guys have all got rods, and it's kind of like, you know, you watch some of those kung fu movies where the guys have sticks and they're, you know, doing the martial arts kind of energy. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday may be that. A lot of activity. You may be encountering a little bit of resistance. You're going to have to be patient. Doors will open. But the way to get the doors to open is to participate. And that's what the Five of Rods often indicates. You have to be willing to participate in your own life and in the lives of those around you. And the final card for the week, as we end our week and see the sun finally arrive in Pisces, we're going to see the Ace of Swords. And I see that as the sun advances into Pisces, we can use the wisdom that we gained during its journey through Aquarius, which is a sign of the mind, to take the sword and cut ourselves free of the things that have been holding us back and keeping us from jumping into the deep end of the pool and really getting into that watery Piscean Neptunian vibration. So the final stage of next week is, I would say, liberation more than anything else. You've cut those bonds that have been holding you back for a long time.
Yeah, that's very deep. I mean, to see all those cards play out, I mean, there's a lot of energy about moving on and a lot of energy about, I think communication is key with Mercury still retrograde in Aquarius. I think around people too, like you said, I think it's important to keep things flowing here, because things could get confusing if you're not speaking up, and things could get confusing if you're not really, you know, keeping maybe energy together or connected. But I think there's going to be a lot of people kind of on their own directions, you know. And remember, Pisces energy, it can get very, you're going to see the unconscious and the conscious, and I think the conscious people are going to start aligning, and I think the unconscious are going to kind of fade away. And I think you'll see that energy source hit.
It absolutely is going to work out that way. The other key element in all of this very deep, intensely spiritual energy that is really starting to bubble now. It's like getting into a hot tub and everything's starting to bubble and agitate. And really, the key element that you also have to go back to and keep in the forefront of your mind is the idea of forgiveness and release. Forgive, release, forgive, release. If you stop and try to get revenge, if you invest energy into getting even, you're really going to stagnate. You're going to come to an absolute blockage, because this energy is saying the door's open, move forward.
Yeah, and I would say that's that Jupiter-Uranus square. There's some very wild consequences, I think, for people who are pushing their egos and not listening to emotion, and especially in a time of Pisces, compassion. Like, I think compassion is the key for this week. I think going deep into higher awareness is your ticket to open these doors.
Absolutely. It's going to be a powerful week. It's going to be interesting to see what feedback we get on this week's review, because I think this is, again, that mercurial thing going on. People are going to be compelled to share their thoughts, share their experiences. So, pardon me, as I am in anticipation of a big week of people sharing the video, do leave your responses for us, because we love getting your feedback, and we are going to start doing a list of things that are suggestions from our fan base as far as highlighting certain things in upcoming episodes.
Yeah, once this Mercury retrograde's done, this one's a little funky. So I've got a good feeling that in March we're going to really introduce a lot of this and our new format, which we've tried out, but I definitely think, you know, also it is our year anniversary. Happy anniversary, Chris. This is it. We've made it.
Yes, this is fantastic. It's been a powerfully transformative year for me, and it's been a rocket ride for you because you've definitely gone from Southern California's Orange County to LA's glamour capital. How cool is that?
It's definitely been a transformation. It's been wonderful. It's been a great experience with you, and we've really had an amazing experience here. And I look forward to continuing on another year with you, and especially seeing where next week will take us as well.
Yes, and then the week after that, the big birthday bash. So a lot to talk about for March 1st. So stick around, kiddos. We're going to have some interesting information.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for another great week, and I'll make sure that we do this next week, and I'll talk to you then.
Great. Have a great week.
All right. Bye.